The UFC entered 2025 with the most it held in years. But what if I told you that in the 18 months since, almost every single one of them was gone? 10 of the 11 active divisions crowned a new champion. The only exception was Valentina Shevchenko. Two champions never lost a fight and gave their titles up anyway. One retired and handed his over without ever defending it. And at one point last winter, the entire promotion had exactly one champion with a title defense to their name, something that had not happened since 2007. Undefeated records were erased. A three-division bid died at the White House. A champion lost his belt in 26 seconds because his arm broke. So how did the UFC go from an era of long, dominant reigns to a championship landscape where nobody can hold on to anything? To understand what really caused this collapse, we need to look at how that era was built and who was holding it together. Going into 2025, the map looked settled. Jon Jones had been the heavyweight champion since March 2023. Islam Makhachev had held the lightweight title since October 2022 and defended it 4 times. Alexandre Pantoja had owned flyweight since July 2023 with 3 defenses. Dricus Du Plessis had middleweight. Alex Pereira had light heavyweight. Merab Dvalishvili had bantamweight and was the most active champion in the sport. Valentina Shevchenko had women's flyweight. These were not caretaker champions. These were fighters who won belts and then kept them, some of them for years at a time. If you had made a list in January 2025 of which titles would change hands that year, most people would have circled 1 or 2. The correct answer turned out to be almost all of them. But the foundation had a crack in it from the beginning, and its name was the heavyweight division. From November 2023 until the summer of 2025, the UFC ran 2 heavyweight champions at the same time. Jones held the undisputed belt. Tom Aspinall held the interim belt. The fight everyone wanted never got made. Jones held that title for more than 800 days and never fought Aspinall once. An entire division sat frozen, waiting on one man's decision. And that pattern, belts existing without being defended, would end up defining everything that came after. The first real crack came on March 8, 2025 at UFC 313. Magomed Ankalaev beat Alex Pereira over 5 rounds and took the light heavyweight title. Pereira had been one of the most feared champions in the sport, a man who had knocked out essentially everyone put in front of him, and he was beaten by a fighter who simply refused to give him the space to load up. It was a clean, deserved, unanimous decision. 1 belt down, and at the time it looked like an isolated result rather than the start of anything. A month later at UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski beat Diego Lopez for the vacant featherweight title. Vacant because Ilia Topuria had walked away from the division entirely to chase lightweight gold. That's the second belt to change hands, and nobody actually lost it in the cage. In May, at UFC 315, Jack Della Maddalena beat Belal Muhammad for the welterweight title, ending a reign that had lasted less than a year. In June at UFC 316, Kayla Harrison submitted Juliana Pena in the second round for the women's bantamweight belt. That's 4 divisions with new champions before the year was even half over, and the board was turning over faster than anyone had accounted for. Then on June 21, 2025, the biggest domino of all. Jon Jones retired. He vacated the heavyweight title, and Tom Aspinall was elevated to undisputed champion without throwing a punch. The longest-standing champion in the promotion left the sport, handed over a belt he had never defended against the man who had been waiting years for it, and the division's most anticipated fight simply evaporated. For a division that had been paralyzed for the better part of 2 years, it was the most anticlimactic possible ending. Jones would later try to reverse that retirement once the White House card was announced, which tells you how seriously the walking away had been meant in the first place. A week later, at UFC 317, Ilia Topuria knocked out Charles Oliveira in the first round to win the vacant lightweight title. Vacant, again, because Islam Makhachev had left the division to move up. That's twice in 1 year that a champion abandoned a belt instead of losing it. In August at UFC 319, Khamzat Chimaev out-wrestled Dricus Du Plessis for a full 25 minutes and took the middleweight title. Du Plessis had beaten Sean Strickland, beaten Israel Adesanya, and defended the belt twice. He was handled about as comprehensively as a champion can be handled. Another long-standing champion gone. October is where it got genuinely chaotic. On the 4th, at UFC 320, Alex Pereira got his rematch with Ankalaev and knocked him out in roughly 80 seconds. Ankalaev's reign lasted less than 7 months. 3 weeks later, at UFC 321, Tom Aspinall finally made his first title defense against Cyril Gane, and the fight ended in the opening round when Gane accidentally poked him in both eyes. No contest. Aspinall needed surgery on both eyes and would not fight again for the rest of the year. On that same card, Mackenzie Dern won the vacant strawweight title. Vacant because Zhang Weili had moved up a division rather than defend it. In November at UFC 322, Islam Makhachev beat Jack Della Maddalena over 5 rounds and became a 2-division champion, joining an extremely short list of fighters in UFC history to hold belts in 2 weight classes. Della Madalena's entire reign lasted 6 months, and then came December 6th, UFC 323, the single most brutal night of the entire collapse. Merab Dvalishvili had defended the bantamweight title in January, again in June, and again in October. He was attempting an unprecedented 4th defense in 1 calendar year. Petr Yan beat him over 5 rounds and took the belt. On the same card, flyweight champion Alexandra Pantoja fought Joshua Van, and the fight was over in 26 seconds because Pantoja's arm broke. A 3-time defending champion, one of the longest reigning title holders in the entire promotion, lost his belt to an injury before the fight had properly started. 2 of the most established champions in the sport were gone in a single night. By the end of 2025, the situation had produced a statistic that sounds made up. Valentina Shevchenko was the only champion in the entire UFC with a title defense to her name. Every other belt in the promotion was being carried by somebody who had won it and not yet held onto it through a single fight. According to ESPN research, the last time the promotion had exactly 1 champion with a defense was May 26, 2007. That's 19 years. An entire sport's worth of belts, and almost nobody had held one long enough to defend it once. And 2026 did not fix it, it accelerated it. On January 24th, at UFC 324, Justin Gaethje beat Paddy Pimblett over 5 rounds to win the interim lightweight title. So now lightweight had 2 champions at once, exactly the same problem that had frozen the heavyweight division for the better part of 2 years, and the promotion walked straight back into it. In April, at UFC 327, Carlos Ulberg knocked out former champion Yuri Prochazka in the first round to claim the vacant light heavyweight title. Vacant because Alex Pereira had given it up to move to heavyweight. Ulberg won the belt and tore his ACL doing it, which meant the newly crowned champion went straight to surgery and an extended layoff. A division that had already burned through 3 champions in 14 months now had a 4th who could not fight. Light heavyweight had gone from Pereira to Ankalaev to Pereira again to vacant to Ulberg in barely more than a year, and at no point in that entire stretch did anybody successfully defend the thing. In May, at UFC 328, Sean Strickland beat Khamzat Chimaev by split decision to take the middleweight title. Chimaev had been perfect, undefeated, unsolvable, the fighter the entire division was supposedly built around. His reign lasted 9 months, and his flawless record went with it on a night where 2 judges saw a fight that the entire division had assumed was unwinnable. Then came June 14, 2026. On the South Lawn of the White House, UFC Freedom 250. Alex Pereira, having vacated light heavyweight, was fighting Cyril Gane for the interim heavyweight title. 1 win from becoming the first fighter in UFC history to win belts in 3 different weight classes. He never got rolling. Gane outstruck him at every range, dropped him with a jab early in the 2nd round, and Herb Dean waved it off at 127. The 3-division dream was dead in under 7 minutes of total fight time, against a man who had himself already lost 2 heavyweight title fights. Pereira spent the following weeks arguing the finish and asking about an appeal. And in the main event of that same card, Ilia Topuria, undefeated at 17-0, the man who had knocked out Volkanovski and knocked out Oliveira and never lost anything in his professional life, was beaten by Justin Gaethje in the 4th round. First loss of his career and the end of one of the most hyped, unbeaten runs the sport had produced in years. The lightweight title, undisputed again, went to a 37-year-old who has been openly discussing the end of his career. Which brings the situation to right now. Tom Aspinall has been out since October 2025, still recovering from multiple eye surgeries, publicly at odds with the promotion. Sitting on a heavyweight belt he has defended exactly 0 times, with an interim champion waiting on him. Aspinall himself, talking about why the UFC booked an interim title fight at the White House without him, put it plainly. The division, he said, is on its ass. The light heavyweight champion is recovering from a torn ACL. Middleweight just changed hands on a split decision. Flyweight changed hands on a broken arm. Welterweight has a champion with no defenses. Bantamweight and middleweight both turned over on the judges' scorecards. The lightweight champion is winding down his career. 2 divisions have belts that were surrendered rather than lost. And on July 11th at UFC 329, the promotion built its biggest card of the year around a fighter who had not competed in 5 years and watched his knee give out 69 seconds into the main event. So what actually caused all of this? Part of it is injuries, and the list there is genuinely ugly when you lay it out end to end. Aspinall's eyes, Olberg's knee, Pantoja's arm, McGregor's knee. Champions in this stretch have not so much been losing their belts to better fighters as losing them to their own bodies, to surgeries, and to the months and months of inactivity that follow. A belt that cannot be defended eventually gets taken, given away, or worked around. Part of it is the interim title problem. The Jones and Aspinall standoff established that a UFC belt can exist for years without being defended, and the promotion has kept reaching for that same solution. Heavyweight has run interim champions twice now. Lightweight ran one in January. Every interim belt is, in effect, an admission that the actual champion cannot fight. And over the last 18 months, the UFC has had an unusual number of champions who could not fight. The result is divisions where nobody is quite sure who the real title holder is. And part of it is simply that the fighters at the top started moving. Topuria left featherweight. Makhachev left lightweight. Zhang left strawweight. Pereira left light heavyweight. 4 titles changed hands in the last 18 months without anybody being beaten for them, because the biggest stars in the sport decided that chasing history in a new division was worth more than defending what they already had. That's how you end up with a championship map where almost nothing means what it meant 2 years ago. The one genuine counterexample is Alexander Volkanovski. He lost his featherweight title, lost again moving up, went away, came back at 36, took the belt back, and then defended it. He now has 8 title fight victories to his name, and he is currently one of the only champions in the promotion doing the thing champions used to do routinely, which is win a belt and then hold on to it. He turns 38 later this year, which tells you something uncomfortable about where the rest of the division is. Everything else is in motion. Gane is expected to face Aspinall to unify heavyweight before the year is out, assuming Aspinall's eyes hold up. Strickland is being lined up against Nasruddin Imavov, with a chance to prove his return to the top is more than a one-night result. Volkanovski is eyeing Movsar Evloev. Makhachev is the pound-for-pound #1 and the closest thing the promotion has to a stable, dominant champion, and he has 0 defenses at welterweight. Olberg is rehabbing a knee and has not defended anything, and nobody yet knows how high his ceiling actually goes. Joshua Van, the youngest champion of the group, has already defended once and looks like the safest bet in the building. 2 years ago, the UFC's championship picture was a list of long reigns and settled divisions. Today, it is 10 new champions, 4 surrendered belts, 1 retirement, 1 no contest, a broken arm, a torn ACL, 2 sets of eye surgeries, an undefeated record erased by split decision, and a 3-division bid ended on the White House lawn. Truly, there is no clear picture for the UFC heading into the back half of 2026, but this is the story of how they got here.